Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey, number 5 in the series. I'm Nick, and thanks for joining us today because we have made it full circle now. Back to the American whiskeys. We started out with Jack Daniel's, Old Number 7, Tennessee whiskey, then Jameson Irish whiskey, Canadian Club, obviously Canadian whiskey, then Macallan 12-year Scotch. And now we're going to be tasting some Wild Turkey 101. Now, this is a pretty special whiskey because what it has behind it is 60 years of distilling history from the master distiller at Wild Turkey, Jimmy Russell. Also, his son, Eddie Russell, has played a large part in this as well. But it's absolutely fascinating to me that someone could work 60 years at the same place. It's just mind-boggling when you think of, people you know today, and maybe even yourself. It's hard to keep one job. People shift around a lot, but this guy is just amazing. Really inspirational. And there's some videos online that you can see more about Jimmy Russell. I'd recommend viewing those. They had a special thing for the 60th anniversary of him working there. So let's get right into it. So Wild Turkey, 101 proof. Now Wild Turkey is pretty notorious for entering their whiskey in barrels at a relatively low proof compared to others. And it's funny because Jimmy Russell actually says that he believes that a higher alcohol content kind of strips away some of those flavors, and also watering a whiskey down kind of takes away some of the sweeter flavors. So it's an interesting perspective because a lot of people associate a higher alcohol by volume content as having more flavor. So you can kind of see it both ways because of the alcohol kind of numbs some of those flavors out. So you can see both sides of the picture, but, just something interesting to know. So, as you can see, the color, pretty nice, golden amber. Definitely a lot of barrel influence there. Now for the nose. Yeah, the first thing that you obviously get are the barrel influences, the heavy vanilla, the oak. There's some dried fruits in there, some raisins, some dark cherry almost. Now for being bottled at, let me check my math here, 50.5% ABV at 101 proof, you don't get a really huge sting of alcohol that you get with some of the other ones, which is nice. You just get a lot of the vanilla, the oak, little caramel, almost little toffee, things that you would expect from the wood, the American oak influence on the whiskey. Now, Wild Turkey is a pretty big whiskey, meaning that there's a lot of flavor in there. It's not like an Irish whiskey, it's got the lighter flavors. Not saying that's good or bad, it's just different styles. So, and just a note, I'm reviewing this in a certain amount of time because of YouTube, and someone's not going to sit there and listen to me ramble for 2 hours while we really get to explore this whiskey. Because this whiskey is meant for you and a couple of friends, get together on a nice day just to go over, stories from the past, tell jokes, that kind of thing. It's really kind of a sipping whiskey that takes time and it evolves over time for sure. So, you drink it how you want it, but if you really want to experience this, it's really an old-time whiskey. The recipe hasn't changed much with Jimmy being there on this particular whiskey, of course, for, 60 years. He's gotten the recipe down from the person that came before him, and also Eddie Russell, his son, will continue that tradition. So really just take your time with it, as we usually say here with most whiskeys, and you'll get the full kind of journey of this whiskey. Very nice. The first thing you get is like a heavy, like a dried fruit note. And then the vanilla kicks in, some cinnamon. It's almost like when you're making up some brown sugar and butter. You know, one of my favorite desserts is like monkey bread. You get like the refrigerated dough and you roll it up, and you put a little butter reduction with some brown sugar on it. It tastes kind of like that. You know, it's got a nice texture to it. It's got a heavy cinnamon quality. The vanilla is certainly there. Now it's definitely got a sweetness, the corn. Now of course it's a bourbon, so there's at least 51% corn grain in there by legal definition, but there's definitely more of the corn sweetness. We talked about before how Canadian Club says that the corn distillate is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. So that's different from just the fact that, yes, corn grain is in here, but the flavor that I'm getting is sweet corn. So that doesn't always mean, oh, well, that's because there's corn in it. Well, it's just kind of the flavors that you get. You know, I gotta say, you know, it's Valentine's Day here, dead of winter, it's snowing like crazy outside, and this makes me think of, you know, a nice summer's eve, sitting around a campfire with friends, just laughing and joking, you know, roasting s'mores, poking the fire with a stick or something, whatever you people do. Just really having a nice time. It's just wonderful, complex, rich, full-bodied bourbon. And I'm going to put a little water in here just to see if anything changes. Oops. I'm going to start breaking stuff in a minute. Now, I'll put a little more water than usual because this is 101 proof. You're used to most things having, you know, 80 proof. So this is definitely a step up. We'll just roll it around a little bit. Kind of let that sit for a minute. Now, the next review, I'll just talk a little bit about that while we're letting this open up a little bit, will be, of course, an Irish whiskey again, and I'm going to be starting a segment on Tullamore Dew whiskeys. Now, I have a whole range, so for the next few weeks, I'm going to be alternating, you know, going from Tullamore to something else like Paddy or Bushmills or something like that, and then returning to another line in the Tullamore brand, just to kind of do a little series on that. Because there is a lot out there, and there's some great differences in there. There's a malt, you know, single malt, which is nice, just to kind of experience what one distillery has. Because as we know, they've just opened up a new distillery, or are still working on it, I'm not sure. It was supposed to be open in 2015, so let's hope that's coming about soon. So yeah, just a little heads up as to what's going on. So let's return to our friend here, Mr. Wild Turkey. Now, interesting enough, I think the term and the name Wild Turkey came from the old distillery that this was a part of. And a couple buddies, you know, from work would go out and they'd grab some whiskey from the warehouse. And people really started to like it, and they said, "Hey, you know, you should get more of that, you know, that Wild Turkey whiskey." So the name just stuck, and, you know, here we are. That's the name. Go figure. Now, as we put some water in it, some of the, like I said earlier, some of the fruitier notes are dying away a little bit. There was some, dried fruit in there. Now what's coming out is more of the caramel, some of the tannins in the wood interacting. A little vanilla, cinnamon-esque, like graham cracker, toffee. And the finish on this has a nice licorice taste to it. It's, like we said, full-bodied, so it's got a nice finish to it. I'm going for one last. Yeah, really admirable. Something, like I said, you could just sit there for hours and drink. I actually have another glass just waiting about that I've had just sitting around for a little while because it's nice, on a night like this, it's freezing out. It's just nice to have a little reminder of, summer that's hopefully going to come around sooner than we'd hope. So let's get our score going here. And for this bourbon, I'm going to give it 91 out of 100 because I deeply respect all of the history and work behind it, and especially, shout out to Jimmy Russell. It's just absolutely phenomenal, like I said, and do a little work, a little research, go in and look it up, try some of the products. Compare it to some other bourbons, see how the taste differs, from what standard, more of the mainstream bourbons out there taste like. So with that, episode number 5 is in the books. Next week we'll be doing an Irish whiskey, like we said. Until then, drink responsibly, have a great week, and we'll see you guys next week.